What happens when the ultimate Hollywood maverick, the gravity-defying legend himself, Tom Cruise, collides with the biggest pop culture phenomenon on the planet? Imagine this: the man who has seen every standard of beauty in the global entertainment industry suddenly sits down to rank the visual kings of the 21st century, BTS. Who actually caught the eye of the Top Gun star? Which member possesses that lethal action hero charm? And who radiates that classic leading man aura that even Tom can't ignore? Are you ready to see how a Hollywood icon judges the worldwide handsome titles? Brace yourselves, because this unexpected crossover is about to blow your mind. Let's dive right in. Number 7. Namjoon. When Tom Cruise, a man who has spent over 40 decades navigating the fiercely competitive and visually demanding world of Hollywood, sat down to evaluate the visual hierarchy of the world's biggest boy band, he wasn't just looking for conventional symmetry. He was searching for that intangible X factor that separates ordinary stars from true legends. And that brings us to our number 7 spot, the indomitable leader of BTS, Kim Namjoon, widely known as RM, whose distinct and unconventional masculine beauty instantly captivated the action superstar's discerning eye. Tom Cruise, having worked alongside some of the most commanding leading men and visionary directors in cinema history, immediately recognized the heavy, gravitational pull of RM's presence, noting that true handsomeness is not merely a product of flawless facial geometry, but rather the physical manifestation of one's intellect, confidence, and the immense weight of the responsibilities they carry upon their shoulders. As Cruise closely examined RM's features, he was particularly struck by the BTS leader's sharp, piercing dragon eyes, a classic monolid that exudes a fierce, unyielding intensity, perfectly balanced by the unexpected, disarming warmth of his deep signature dimples, which appear like a sudden plot twist in a gripping blockbuster movie, instantly melting away the intimidating exterior to reveal a genuinely kind soul. This striking duality, the fierce, towering intellect juxtaposed with a genuine boyish warmth, is exactly what makes RM's face so fascinating to a veteran actor like Cruise, who understands that the most captivating faces on the silver screen are those that tell a complex, layered story without uttering a single word. Tom pointed out that RM possesses the structured, robust jawline and the statuesque physical proportions of a classic, stoic hero, the kind of leading man who doesn't just enter a room, but completely alters its atmospheric pressure, commanding absolute attention through sheer, unadulterated charisma rather than desperate flamboyance. Diving deeper into the emotional resonance of RM's visuals, one cannot ignore the profound impact of his incredible life journey. From an underground rapper in the gritty hip-hop scene of Seoul to a global cultural ambassador standing confidently at the podium of the United Nations, a transformative odyssey that has intricately chiseled his features with the quiet dignity of a seasoned general who has weathered countless storms, online hate, and immense industry pressure to fiercely protect his members. Cruise observed that when RM looks directly into the camera lens, there is a profound depth, a philosophical contemplation reflecting his well-documented love for art, literature, and nature, which translates into a highly sophisticated, mature aesthetic that stands out in stark contrast to the standard cookie-cutter pop idol image that dominates the modern music industry. This is a man who embodies the very essence of brainy beauty, where his towering 181-centimeter frame and broad, dependable shoulders serve as the physical foundation for a mind that is constantly churning with profound thoughts, deeply poetic lyrics, and a relentless drive for self-improvement. Traits that Tom Cruise, famously known for his own obsessive, death-defying dedication to his cinematic craft, deeply respects and admires on a personal level. While some narrow, conventional beauty standards in South Korea or the West might hastily overlook RM in favor of more traditionally pretty or delicate features, Cruise's refined cinematic eye caught the raw cinematic quality of RM's face, likening his visual vibe to the kind of complex, morally gray protagonist in a high-stakes political thriller or a sweeping historical epic, where the character's raw magnetism, strategic genius, and intellectual prowess are the true sources of their undeniable allure. The Hollywood legend emphasized that RM's handsomeness is an acquired, incredibly rich taste, much like a fine aged wine that reveals its complex notes over time, demanding that the viewer look far beyond the superficial surface to truly appreciate the profound strength, the quiet vulnerability, and the steadfast reliability that define his unique facial architecture and overall body language. Furthermore, Cruz excitedly noted the way RM's face dynamically transforms on stage, shifting effortlessly from a fierce, aggressive hip-hop titan during intense performances like Mic Drop or Dionysus to a gentle, philosophical giant during intimate fan interactions, proving that his visual appeal is entirely fluid, highly adaptable, and deeply emotionally resonant with millions of fans across the globe. In the high-octane, adrenaline-fueled world of Tom Cruise, a truly handsome face must convey action, intent, and undeniable power, and RM delivers exactly that with a subtle, grounded elegance that doesn't need to shout to be heard, proving that true beauty is deeply intertwined with character, leadership, and the relentless pursuit of artistic integrity, securing him a powerful and unforgettable position on this legendary ranking. The actor was supposedly blown away by how RM carries his imperfections, turning them into undeniable strengths, proving that authenticity will always outshine plastic perfection, making RM's inclusion on this list a true testament to the fact that intellect and charisma are the absolute ultimate amplifiers of physical attractiveness in today's superficial world. So while he confidently sits at number 7 on this particular subjective list, the sheer magnitude of RM's unique, commanding beauty leaves a lingering, unforgettable impression that challenges all preconceived notions of what it means to be a modern visual icon, setting a majestic, deeply inspiring tone for the rest of this mind-blowing countdown that will keep you glued to your seat. Number 6. Suga. Stepping into the number 6 spot is a man whose visual appeal operates on an entirely different, almost dangerous frequency, a silent but deadly frequency that instantly triggered the cinematic radar of an action veteran like Tom Cruise. And we are talking about none other than the musical genius and rap powerhouse of BTS, Min Yoongi, globally feared and revered as Suga or August D. When Tom Cruise laid his eyes on Suga, he didn't just see a handsome pop star. He saw the quintessential brooding anti-hero of a high-stakes neo-noir thriller, a man whose beauty is steeped in a profound, unapologetic mystery and a razor-sharp feline mystique that absolutely refuses to conform to any standard but his own. Cruise, a master of utilizing the power of a quiet, intense stare on the big screen, was thoroughly fascinated by Suga's notoriously piercing, cat-like eyes, which seemed to hold an ocean of unspoken thoughts, deep-seated pain, and unyielding ambition, observing that Suga possesses that rare, mesmerizing ability to communicate 1,000 complex emotions without ever moving a single facial muscle. This is a highly specific, hypnotic brand of handsomeness that doesn't scream for your attention, but rather patiently waits for you to fall helplessly into its gravitational pull, characterized by his shockingly pale, almost porcelain-like skin that sharply contrasts with the dark, intense aura he radiates whenever he steps into the spotlight. Tom pointed out that Suga's facial structure, the subtle, elegant curve of his jaw, the delicate but defined nose, and those famously intense, heavy-lidded eyes paints the picture of a lone wolf protagonist, the kind of dangerously quiet character who sits in the shadowy corner of a bustling room but somehow commands the absolute respect and fear of everyone present without saying a single word. But what truly solidified Suga's position in this Hollywood Legends ranking is the sheer whiplash-inducing duality that defines his entire existence and his visual narrative. For beneath that icy, untouchable, and fiercely intimidating Daegu bad boy exterior lies one of the most disarmingly sweet and radiant features in the entire K-pop industry, his legendary gummy smile. Cruz noted that this sudden, glorious transformation from a cold, untouchable rap god spitting venomous bars as August D to a soft, incredibly endearing young man with a smile that scrunches up his nose and completely melts his icy facade is the ultimate cinematic twist, an emotional roller coaster that keeps the audience hooked and hopelessly captivated because it humanizes the untouchable superstar in a matter of milliseconds. Delving into the profound background that sculpted these fascinating features, one must acknowledge the raw, gritty reality of Yoongi's past, from battling severe financial hardships and working grueling part-time delivery jobs in his youth, where a tragic traffic accident shattered his shoulder, to wrestling with profound mental health struggles that he so bravely laid bare in his incredibly raw solo mixtapes. This painful but triumphant journey has inextricably woven a layer of profound, undeniable authenticity into his physical appearance, giving his face the seasoned, battle-scarred dignity of a survivor, a trait that deeply resonates with Tom Cruise, a man who has famously pushed his own physical and mental limits to the absolute brink in the pursuit of cinematic excellence. Tom recognized that Suga's beauty is not the manufactured, polished prettiness of a factory-produced idol, but rather the hard-earned, fiercely guarded allure of an underground artist who fought tooth and nail for his right to exist on the global stage, proving that true, lasting attractiveness is forged in the fires of adversity and pure, unadulterated passion for one's craft. Furthermore, the action superstar was completely captivated by the way Suga carries himself, noting that his seemingly laid-back, lethargic energy off stage is actually a masterclass in energy conservation, a coiled spring of raw, creative power that only unleashes its full, devastating visual and sonic impact when he is firmly in his element, holding a microphone and absolutely dominating the stage with a fiery, aggressive charisma that leaves audiences breathless and begging for more. Let's pause and truly dissect the visceral impact of his visual presence, because when you look closely at Suga, you aren't just looking at a face, you are looking at an expansive canvas of a raw, unfiltered emotion that has been meticulously painted by years of relentless struggle, monumental triumphs, and a solitary dedication to the art of music production inside his legendary Genius Lab. Tom Cruise, a filmmaker who deeply values the behind-the-scenes mastery just as much as the on-screen performance, was purportedly fascinated by the sheer intensity that radiates from every pore of Suga, an intensity that perfectly mirrors the grueling, obsessive dedication required to produce chart-topping anthems for the biggest band in the world, while simultaneously conquering the globe as a fiercely independent solo artist. The Hollywood Titan also took special note of the finer, more subtle details that contribute to Suga's overall hypnotic aura, such as his famously elegant, beautifully structured hands that fly across piano keys with the grace of a classical maestro and grip a microphone with the aggressive dominance of a seasoned hip-hop veteran, adding a unique, highly specific layer of physical attractiveness that fans and casual observers alike find completely irresistible and heavily documented. This extreme attention to detail is what makes a star a legend, and Cruise recognized that Suga's visual narrative is entirely self-authored. From his fashion choices that often lean towards a dark, minimalist, and effortlessly cool aesthetic, heavily favoring luxurious black garments that further accentuate his strikingly pale complexion, to the way his hair effortlessly falls over those dark, calculating eyes, every single aspect of Min Yoongi's presentation is a deliberate, masterful stroke of artistic expression. It is a quiet rebellion against the loud, neon-soaked expectations of the highly manufactured pop industry, a refusal to perform artificial happiness when he feels darkness. And it is precisely this raw, unvarnished honesty that elevates his facial features from merely handsome to profoundly and dangerously captivating on a psychological level. When a veteran actor evaluates a face, they look for the story it can tell without a script, and Suga's face tells an epic, sprawling saga of an underdog who crawled from the damp, underground studios of Daegu all the way to the blindingly bright stages of the Grammy Awards, carrying the scars of his past not as blemishes, but as triumphant medals of honor that only serve to deepen his enigmatic beauty and solidify his status as an absolute, undeniable icon of modern masculinity. In the eyes of a Hollywood icon who knows exactly what it takes to captivate an audience for decades, Suga's unique brand of handsomeness is deeply rooted in his unapologetic individuality, his fierce independence, and his extraordinary ability to effortlessly blend vulnerability with terrifying power, creating a visual symphony that is as intellectually stimulating as it is physically striking. Cruise supposedly mused that if Suga were ever cast in a Hollywood blockbuster, he wouldn't be the traditional, smiling romantic lead. He would be the enigmatic, untouchable mastermind pulling the strings from the shadows, stealing every single scene with a single calculating glance and a smirk that promises absolute chaos, making him utterly unforgettable to anyone who crosses his path. So, as he firmly claims the number 6 position in this mind-blowing ranking, Suga stands as a powerful testament to the idea that true, magnetic handsomeness is not about fitting perfectly into a pre-existing mold of beauty, but rather about possessing the sheer, audacious willpower to shatter that mold entirely and rebuild it in your own fiercely unique, brilliantly complex image, leaving a lingering chill and an insatiable curiosity in the air as we move further down this unpredictable list.
Number 5. J-Hope. Stepping right into the radiant, high-energy center of our number 5 spot is a man who completely shatters the illusion that a bright, sunshine-like personality cannot coexist with a dangerously sharp, fiercely intimidating physical aesthetic, and we are talking about the unparalleled dance commander of BTS, Jungkook, universally adored and deeply respected as J-Hope. When a seasoned Hollywood veteran like Tom Cruise, a man whose entire billion-dollar career is built on the flawless execution of physical movement, relentless energy, and the absolute mastery of body language, looks at J-Hope, he doesn't just see a ridiculously handsome pop idol, he sees a masterclass in kinetic storytelling and a facial architecture that is literally built to capture and command the camera's lens from every conceivable angle. Tom Cruise knows better than anyone that the camera is an incredibly demanding mistress that feeds on striking bone structure, and he was undoubtedly blown away by J-Hope's legendary razor-sharp jawline, a jawline so profoundly defined and exquisitely sculpted that fans often joke it could effortlessly cut glass or slice right through the thickest, most palpable Hollywood tension on a movie set. But it is not just the jawline that makes J-Hope a phenomenal visual masterpiece. It is the breathtaking combination of his high aristocratic cheekbones, his elegantly sloped nose, and his perfectly shaved, incredibly expressive lips that create a facial geometry that is both classically beautiful and remarkably unique, making him an absolute dream for any cinematographer tasked with dynamically lighting a dramatic scene. What truly separates J-Hope from the rest of the pack in the discerning eyes of a cinematic legend, however, is the astonishing level of dynamic, micro-level control he has over his own facial expressions, a direct result of his incredibly gritty background as a fiercely competitive underground street dancer in Gwangju, where he learned early on that true performance is not just about hitting the right moves, but about projecting raw, unfiltered emotion all the way to the very back row of a massive stadium. Cruise, who famously insists on doing his own death-defying stunts to ensure the audience feels the genuine thrill, impact, and terror of the moment, would instantly recognize and deeply respect the sheer, grueling physical discipline that radiates from J-Hope's face. It is the face of a man who has spent thousands upon thousands of hours staring into the unforgiving mirrors of a dance studio, meticulously perfecting every single micro-expression until his body and his visage are in perfect, breathtaking synchronization. This relentless dedication has birthed one of the most terrifyingly beautiful dualities in the entire global entertainment industry, a visual whiplash that undoubtedly caught Tom Cruise's detail-oriented eye, the stark, unbelievable contrast between the warm, healing, heart-shaped smile of Hobie, which can literally light up a pitch-black room and instantly melt away the darkest of moods, and the cold, ruthlessly focused, intensely intimidating gaze of Jay, the strict,
uncompromising dance leader who demands absolute perfection from himself and his fiercely talented bandmates. Cruise noted that when J-Hope steps onto the stage, particularly during intense, hard-hitting group performances like Mic Drop or Outro Tear, or during his deeply personal, grunge-inspired, rock-heavy solo works like More and Arson, his face undergoes a radical, almost terrifying transformation. The joyful sunshine completely evaporates into thin air, replaced by a dark, smoldering, and incredibly dangerous charisma that utterly dominates the visual space and absolutely refuses to let the viewer look away for even a fraction of a second. It is a highly aggressive, fiercely confident brand of handsomeness that doesn't just passively ask for your attention, but violently, magnetically demands it, fueled by an inner fire and a staggering level of self-assurance that can only be forged through years of overcoming painful self-doubt, completely ignoring baseless early career criticism, and relentlessly clawing his way to the absolute pinnacle of global musical supremacy. Furthermore, the Hollywood icon was supposedly utterly captivated by the way J-Hope strategically uses his eyes that are usually beautifully crinkled in pure, unadulterated joy, as lethal weapons of mass destruction when he is fully in his element, possessing the rare, terrifying ability to instantly flip a mental switch and project a cold, calculating intensity that could easily rival any top-tier action movie villain or a suave, untouchable secret agent navigating a high-stakes espionage thriller. If J-Hope were ever cast in a massive, big-budget Hollywood blockbuster, Cruise mused, he would not be relegated to the simple, one-dimensional comedic relief or the supportive best friend. He would be the wildly unpredictable, ridiculously stylish, and effortlessly cool rogue operative, the kind of character who casually adjusts his flawlessly tailored, avant-garde designer suit before single-handedly taking down a room full of heavily armed enemies with a breathtaking display of acrobatic martial arts and a dangerously arrogant, knowing smirk. This brings us to another incredibly crucial element of J-Hope's visual supremacy that heavily influenced his solid placement on this legendary list: his unparalleled, fearless sense of fashion and the staggering physical grace with which he carries himself, proving that true, lasting attractiveness is deeply intertwined with exactly how one confidently occupies physical space in a crowded room. J-Hope possesses a lean, powerfully muscled, exquisitely toned dancer's physique that serves as the perfect, dynamic canvas for some of the most daring, boundary-pushing outfits in the high fashion world. Outfits that would easily swallow a lesser, less confident man whole, but look entirely natural, almost regal, draped casually across his perfectly proportioned shoulders and commanding upright frame. Tom Cruise, who understands the profound psychological impact of costuming, silhouette, and posture in creating an unforgettable, iconic character on screen, recognized that J-Hope doesn't just simply wear expensive clothes, he breathes vibrant life into them, utilizing his immaculate posture, his fluid panther-like movements, and his fierce, unwavering confidence to turn every single airport runway, red carpet arrival, and concert stage into his own highly exclusive high-fashion editorial shoot. The sheer emotional weight of J-Hope's visual evolution is also utterly impossible to ignore, as he has blossomed from the young, slightly insecure boy who was unfairly scrutinized in his early debut days to a breathtakingly gorgeous, globally recognized fashion icon and a powerhouse solo artist who confidently commands the main stage of Lollapalooza completely by himself for an hour and a half, proving to the entire world that genuine, undeniable beauty is deeply rooted in self-love, unwavering resilience, and the relentless, passionate pursuit of artistic evolution.
In the highly discerning, hypercritical eyes of a Hollywood titan like Tom Cruise, a truly handsome face must be accompanied by an undeniable, electrifying physical presence, and J-Hope delivers this exact combination with a blinding, ferocious intensity that is completely unmatched in the industry, proving that his unique brand of beauty is not just a passive genetic trait, but a highly active, dynamic force of nature that leaves an indelible, scorching mark on the soul of anyone fortunate enough to witness it. By effortlessly and masterfully blending the warm, comforting familiarity of a deeply loyal best friend with the untouchable, godlike aura of a seasoned stage veteran who absolutely owns every inch of the spotlight, Jung Ho-sok secures his rightful, rock-solid place at number 5, completely challenging the very definition of modern masculinity and leaving us completely breathless, begging for more as we prepare to dive even deeper into the scorching heat of this incredibly intense, high-stakes visual countdown.
Number 4. Jimin. Stepping into the fiercely contested number 4 spot is a man whose visual presence utterly defies all conventional categorization. An artist who has effortlessly shattered the rigid, deeply entrenched boundaries of traditional masculine aesthetics to forge a breathtakingly unique, almost otherworldly brand of beauty. And we are talking about the main dancer and lead vocalist of BTS, Park Jimin. When an absolute titan of the silver screen like Tom Cruise, someone who has spent decades studying the subtle nuances of human expression and the magnetic pull of a true leading star, fixed his critical, highly trained gaze upon Jimin, he was immediately struck by an aesthetic that is less about raw, aggressive power and entirely about the devastating, hypnotic allure of pure, unadulterated elegance. Cruise, who is intimately familiar with the grueling, transformative power of physical discipline, was supposedly mesmerized by the sheer, undeniable fact that Jimin's face is a direct, flawless reflection of his extensive background as a top-tier student of contemporary dance at the prestigious Busan High School of Arts, a rigorous classical training that has deeply ingrained a profound sense of fluid grace into every single fiber of his being, extending all the way up to his delicate, exquisitely sculpted facial features. What immediately captures the attention of a cinematic veteran is the sheer, breathtaking poetry of Jimin's bone structure, characterized by a shockingly sharp, fiercely defined jawline that creates a striking, almost dangerous contrast with the profound, devastating softness of his famously plush, naturally full lips, which possess a uniquely beautiful, prominent shape that has become the absolute envy of the beauty industry worldwide. But the true, undisputed epicenter of Jimin's fatal visual power lies in his mesmerizing, almond-shaped eyes, which Tom Cruise identified as the ultimate actor's tool. Eyes that are capable of conveying a staggering, deeply overwhelming spectrum of human emotion, possessing a heavy, smoldering gaze that can effortlessly draw a viewer into a vortex of profound melancholy, fierce desire, or angelic innocence, all within the span of a single fleeting heartbeat. This profound ocular expressiveness is the exact reason why Jimin is often described by fans and highly respected cultural critics alike as the absolute embodiment of the Black Swan, a breathtakingly tragic, intensely beautiful figure who pours every single ounce of his bleeding soul into his art, completely sacrificing his own physical and mental comfort for the sake of achieving absolute, untouchable perfection on the global stage. Cruise noted that this relentless, bordering on obsessive pursuit of artistic excellence has carved an undeniable, deeply compelling depth into Jimin's face, elevating his visuals from merely pretty to something fundamentally tragic, incredibly romantic, and cinematically profound, reminiscent of the legendary, emotionally complex muses of the classic French New Wave cinema or the beautifully doomed protagonists of epic, sweeping historical romances who captivate the audience with their silent, enduring suffering and explosive, undeniable passion. Furthermore, the Hollywood icon was profoundly fascinated by the sheer, whiplash-inducing duality that defines Jimin's entire existence. A man who can effortlessly and genuinely embody the soft, squishy, unbelievably endearing persona affectionately dubbed Mochi by millions of adoring armies, radiating a blindingly bright, pure warmth that instantly evokes a fierce protective instinct and causes his eyes to completely disappear into adorable crescent moons when he laughs, only to violently and unapologetically obliterate that very same innocent image the second the stage lights hit his skin. In a fraction of a second, he transforms into a lethal, incredibly seductive siren who utterly dominates the performance with a dark, tantalizing, and fiercely intimidating aura during iconic, gravity-defying solo performances like Filter or Lie, utilizing his hypnotic facial expressions to completely ensnare the audience. It is this astonishing, terrifyingly seamless ability to completely inhabit two diametrically opposed visual identities that makes Jimin such a formidable presence on this highly exclusive list, proving to an experienced actor like Tom Cruise that his handsomeness is not a static, unchanging portrait, but rather a dynamic, living, breathing performance art that constantly keeps the audience on the absolute edge of their seats, completely addicted to the thrilling unpredictability of his next visual evolution. Delving into the deeply emotional background that has forged this ethereal beauty, one must acknowledge the heartbreaking, fiercely inspiring journey of a young, heavily scrutinized artist who violently battled crippling self-doubt, incredibly harsh industry expectations, and punishingly cruel body image issues in his early debut days during the No More Dream era, a grueling crucible that threatened to crush his spirit, but instead forged it into an unbreakable, blindingly brilliant diamond. Cruise recognized that the profound vulnerability Jimin so bravely displays to the world, never shying away from his own tears on stage or hiding his desperate, beautiful desire to be loved and validated by his fans, adds an incredibly rich, utterly irreplaceable layer of raw human authenticity to his incredibly striking physical appearance, proving that true, undeniable beauty is deeply rooted in the extraordinary courage to be completely, unapologetically fragile in front of millions of highly critical eyes. The legendary actor also took careful note of the incredibly sophisticated, high-fashion aesthetic that naturally clings to Jimin's slender, exquisitely proportioned frame, noting the way he effortlessly elevates any garment he wears, which flawlessly explains his massively successful global ambassadorship for luxury powerhouse Dior. He completely blurs the rigid lines of gendered fashion by seamlessly incorporating delicate laces, sheer fabrics, plunging necklines, and heavily embellished, glittering accessories into his wardrobe, fundamentally redefining modern masculinity as something completely fluid, deeply romantic, and breathtakingly bold. Tom Cruise supposedly mused that if Jimin were ever to grace the silver screen in a massive Hollywood epic, he wouldn't be playing a rugged, standard-issue soldier. Instead, he would be cast as an enigmatic, ethereal elven prince in a sprawling high-fantasy blockbuster, or a dangerously charming rogue who utilizes his breathtaking beauty and deceptive innocence to mastermind the ultimate heist, leaving every single character in the film completely spellbound and utterly defenseless against his captivating charm. In the fiercely competitive, visually saturated world of global entertainment, a truly unforgettable face must possess an undeniable, hauntingly unique signature, and Jimin delivers exactly that, with a staggering, ethereal elegance that completely bypasses the logical brain and strikes directly at the very core of the human heart, leaving a permanent, scorching emotional brand on anyone fortunate enough to fall under his hypnotic, fairy tale-like spell. By proving that extreme vulnerability is actually the ultimate form of unyielding strength, and that true handsomeness is infinitely more powerful when it completely surrenders to the raw, untamed forces of pure emotion and exquisite, agonizing artistic passion, Park Jimin rightfully claims the fiercely coveted number 4 spot on this legendary, adrenaline-fueled ranking, leaving us absolutely paralyzed with awe and burning with an insatiable, overwhelming anticipation as we inch closer and closer to the absolute, undeniable zenith of this monumental, epic Hollywood countdown.
Number 3. Jungkook. Entering the highly coveted, fiercely competitive number 3 spot is a man who practically embodies the exact same relentless, adrenaline-fueled spirit that has defined Tom Cruise's entire cinematic legacy. A breathtaking physical specimen who seamlessly merges heart-stopping boyish innocence with raw, untamed, terrifyingly lethal masculinity. And we are talking about none other than the golden Mockney himself, Jungkook. When a bona fide action god like Tom Cruise, a man who has famously dangled from the towering spire of the Burj Khalifa and strapped himself to the outside of a massive military cargo plane mid-flight in the absolute name of cinematic realism, looks at Jungkook, he doesn't just see a ridiculously talented main vocalist of a pop group. He immediately recognizes a kindred spirit, an absolute physical prodigy whose face and body are perfectly, meticulously built for the high-stakes, explosive world of global action cinema. The very first thing that absolutely paralyzes the viewer and undoubtedly caught Cruise's highly trained, expert eye is the staggering, almost unbelievable contrast between Jungkook's famously huge, sparkling, incredibly innocent doe eyes that radiate a pure, unadulterated galactic wonder and a gentle, soul-healing warmth, and the aggressively chiseled, dangerously sharp structure of his jawline and the intimidating, heavily tattooed canvas of his incredibly muscular, flawlessly sculpted physique. This jarring, phenomenally captivating visual duality is the holy grail of Hollywood casting, the exact aesthetic that creates legendary leading men who can effortlessly transition from breaking hearts in a sweeping, tear-jerking romantic drama to single-handedly obliterating a room full of highly trained assassins in a gritty, high-octane cyberpunk thriller without ever missing a single beat or appearing out of place. Cruise, who completely understands the intense, obsessive dedication required to maintain a superhero-level physique while performing flawlessly under the blinding, suffocating pressure of global stardom, was purportedly blown away by the sheer, terrifying physical discipline etched deeply into Jungkook's facial features and overall body language, observing the way his intense, rigorous boxing routines and relentless gym sessions have sculpted a striking neck and shoulder line that screams absolute, undeniable power and unwavering reliability. But Jungkook's handsomeness is not just about raw, brutish muscle. It is heavily defined by an incredibly cool, unapologetically edgy aesthetic that he has boldly carved out for himself over the years, completely defying the traditionally restrictive, highly conservative expectations of the Korean idol industry by confidently adorning his entire right arm with intricate, deeply meaningful tattoos and piercing his lip and eyebrow, transforming himself into a modern, fiercely independent rock star who refuses to be caged by anyone else's arbitrary rules of how a pop star should present themselves. This rebellious, wildly attractive evolution from a painfully shy, remarkably introverted 15-year-old kid from Busan who used to literally cry in the bathroom out of sheer anxiety when asked to sing in front of a small room of people, into a towering, heavily tattooed global pop titan who casually and confidently dominates the massive, terrifying stage of the FIFA World Cup opening ceremony all by himself, is an epic, sweeping cinematic narrative that adds an immeasurable, intoxicating depth to his striking visual appeal. Tom Cruise, a man who has built an entire multi-billion-dollar empire on the concept of pushing past impossible limits and defying gravity itself, would fiercely respect the quiet, simmering intensity that constantly burns behind Jungkook's dark, captivating eyes, an intensity that perfectly mirrors his legendary, almost terrifyingly obsessive drive to be the absolute best at literally everything he attempts, earning him the prestigious, highly coveted title of the Golden Mockney, the youngest member who excels at singing, dancing, rapping, video directing, painting, and extreme sports with a terrifying, effortless grace that leaves seasoned professionals completely speechless and questioning their own talents. Furthermore, the Hollywood icon would deeply appreciate the way Jungkook's face dynamically interacts with the camera during intense music videos and live performances, completely mastering the subtle, micro-expressions of a seasoned, award-winning A-list actor, whether he is exuding a dark,
dangerous, and incredibly seductive aura in Blood, Sweat, and Tears, showcasing a fiercely aggressive punk rock energy in his record-breaking solo debut 7, or projecting a soft, deeply vulnerable, and achingly beautiful sorrow in Still With You, proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that his facial architecture is a highly versatile, devastatingly effective instrument of emotional manipulation. Let us deeply analyze the sheer, undeniable magnetism of his natural, unstyled moments as well, because true beauty, as Cruz knows from decades of surviving raw, unedited paparazzi shots and grueling makeup-free movie shoots, is profoundly tested when the heavy stage makeup is completely wiped away, and Jungkook shines perhaps the brightest in these raw, unfiltered moments. His bare face, framed by a messy, effortlessly cool mop of dark hair, exudes a rugged, dangerously boy-next-door charm that completely short-circuits the internet every single time he goes live on Weavers in the middle of the night to simply fold his laundry, sing karaoke for 4 hours straight, or quietly chat with millions of fans across the globe while holding a glass of whiskey. This extraordinary ability to be so profoundly, overwhelmingly attractive while doing absolutely mundane, ordinary household chores is the truest, most undeniable mark of a legendary visual icon, and it stems directly from his incredibly pure, fiercely humble, and grounded personality that completely balances his godlike, statuesque physical proportions with a highly relatable, incredibly endearing reality that fans simply cannot get enough of, no matter how many times they see him. If Tom Cruise were actively casting his next massive, billion-dollar Mission Impossible installment right this very second, Jungkook would be the absolute, undeniable first choice to play the brilliant, fiercely rebellious young rogue operative, the kind of breathtakingly handsome, wildly unpredictable character who races a blacked-out Ducati through the crowded, neon-drenched streets of Tokyo at terrifying speeds, executing flawless stunts and effortlessly breaking the hearts of every single person who catches a fleeting glimpse of his heavily pierced, striking visage before he disappears completely into the shadowy, exhilarating night, leaving nothing but chaos and a trail of gasping admirers in his wake. By flawlessly mastering the incredibly delicate, highly dangerous balance between aggressive, untamed masculine power and incredibly soft, endearing, puppy-like vulnerability, Jungkook secures a rock-solid, completely unshakable grip on the number 3 spot on this legendary countdown, leaving an absolutely permanent, scorching impact on the very definition of modern beauty and setting an impossibly high, terrifying standard as we anxiously, breathlessly prepare to unveil the final, elite remaining faces on this epic, mind-blowing Hollywood ranking.
Number 2. Taehyung. Stepping into the incredibly prestigious, highly contested number 2 spot is a man whose visual presence utterly transcends the fleeting temporary trends of the modern pop industry, possessing a face so breathtakingly symmetrical and classically devastating that it genuinely seems to have been meticulously sculpted by the masterful hands of a historical Renaissance genius. And we are talking about none other than Kim Taehyung, globally revered and frantically adored by millions as V. When a seasoned cinematic titan like Tom Cruise, a man whose own legendary multi-billion-dollar career was meticulously built on the solid foundation of classic, undeniable leading man charisma and the kind of magnetic, old Hollywood charm that simply cannot be artificially manufactured in a studio, laid his discerning, highly critical eyes upon Taehyung, he was instantly and powerfully transported back to the absolute golden era of international cinema, immediately recognizing a rare, generational beauty that effortlessly echoes the brooding, untouchable allure of iconic cultural rebels like James Dean or a wildly passionate young Marlon Brando. The very first thing that absolutely paralyzes any casual viewer and undoubtedly commanded Cruise's undivided, expert cinematic attention is the sheer astonishing perfection of V's legendary T-zone, a flawless, remarkably prominent brow bone that perfectly aligns with a striking, exquisitely sloped nose, creating a facial architecture so fiercely striking and aggressively handsome that elite plastic surgeons across the globe have repeatedly cited
cited him as the ultimate, albeit mathematically impossible, standard of male beauty in the modern century. But to merely reduce Taehyung's breathtaking handsomeness to cold, calculated geometric proportions would be an absolute cinematic crime, because the true, fatal weapon in his massive visual arsenal lies buried deep within his intensely soulful, incredibly expressive eyes, famously mesmerizing, slightly asymmetrical eyes featuring one striking, fierce monolid and one deeply romantic double eyelid that radiate a profound, almost tragic depth, fully capable of silently narrating a sprawling, sweeping epic romance or a dark, deeply psychological thriller without him ever needing to utter a single solitary syllable. Cruz, who completely and intimately understands the intense, magnetic power of a brooding, silent protagonist who can effortlessly command an entire silver screen with a mere fleeting glance, would be profoundly fascinated by the way V's incredibly thick, long eyelashes naturally cast heavy, dramatic shadows over his dark, pooling irises, instinctively creating an alluring, inherently mysterious aura that actively demands the viewer to lean in closer, completely ensnaring them in his intoxicating, inescapable gravitational pull before they even realize what is happening. This hypnotic, dangerous visual power is heavily and aggressively amplified by the astonishing, deeply resonant quality of his natural baritone, a rich, velvety, soulful timbre that completely contradicts his delicate, almost ethereal facial features, providing a shocking sensory whiplash that completely disarms the listener and leaves audiences utterly defenseless against his overwhelming, multi-dimensional charm. Furthermore, the Hollywood legend would undoubtedly appreciate and applaud the sheer, unparalleled theatricality that V brings to every single stage performance, utilizing his remarkably expressive face to seamlessly morph into a massive multitude of wildly distinct, complex characters, effortlessly transitioning from a deeply tormented, fiercely tragic fallen angel weeping in the iconic Blood, Sweat, and Tears era to an untouchable, incredibly suave, and dangerously arrogant mafia boss, smoothly wiping his lip in the legendary Singularity music video, proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that he is not just a highly successful singer, but a highly instinctual, brilliantly gifted actor who deeply understands the profound psychological weight of intense visual storytelling. Let us dive even deeper into the raw, emotional, and highly inspiring background that heavily anchors this ethereal, godlike beauty to our humble reality, because Taehyung's incredible life journey from a humble, secretly aspiring farmer boy growing up in the quiet, rural province of Daegu, a sweet, innocent boy who merely tagged along to a massive entertainment audition simply to quietly support his nervous friend, only to be immediately and frantically scouted by desperate casting directors who were absolutely paralyzed by his raw, unpolished, striking visuals, is the exact kind of miraculous, serendipitous underdog story that Hollywood absolutely adores and constantly, desperately tries to replicate on the big screen. This incredibly grounded, fiercely loyal, and deeply family-oriented foundation has miraculously preserved a profoundly pure, surprisingly eccentric, and wonderfully weird innocence within his soul, birthing a completely disarming, terrifyingly beautiful duality that Tom Cruise would find absolutely captivating: the jarring, lightning-fast transition from the fiercely intimidating, intensely sensual high-fashion muse who confidently shuts down massive, glittering Paris Fashion Week red carpets as the absolute star global ambassador for Celine, to the incredibly soft, utterly endearing good boy who suddenly flashes his legendary, wonderfully unique boxy smile that instantly scrunches up his perfect face and completely melts the hearts of millions of fiercely protective fans across the entire globe. Cruise recognized that Taehyung's unique, suffocating brand of handsomeness is completely and entirely self-possessed, heavily defined by an eccentric, unapologetically bold, and fiercely individualistic sense of high fashion that effortlessly blends vintage, sweeping romantic silhouettes, heavily ruffled classic collars, and boldly patterned wide-leg trousers with sleek, modern minimalism, creating a highly specific, totally inimitable aesthetic that actively screams effortless, untouchable luxury and profound, unshakable artistic confidence. In the highly critical, fiercely competitive eyes of a veteran filmmaker who constantly searches the globe for the absolute perfect muse to effortlessly carry a multi-billion-dollar cinematic masterpiece, V's exquisite face represents the ultimate, once-in-a-lifetime cinematic jackpot, a breathtaking, exquisitely detailed human canvas that can effortlessly project fierce, untamed aggression, deeply heartbreaking vulnerability, and cold, untouchable aristocratic arrogance, all at the exact same time, making him an incredibly dangerous, wildly unpredictable visual force of nature that cannot be ignored or easily replaced. If Tom Cruise were ever to handpick Kim Taehyung for a massive, sweeping cinematic masterpiece right this very second, he absolutely wouldn't cast him as a simple, one-dimensional, highly predictable action hero. Instead, V would be brilliantly cast as the incredibly complex, morally ambiguous, and devastatingly charming primary antagonist, the kind of breathtakingly beautiful villain who casually and elegantly sips incredibly expensive vintage wine in a massive, dimly lit Venetian palazzo while smoothly orchestrating catastrophic global chaos, leaving the audience completely conflicted and entirely helpless because they are entirely, hopelessly in love with the bad guy on the screen. The sheer, overwhelming magnitude of his visual influence cannot be understated, as he consistently shatters massive global records simply by waking up and existing, completely breaking the internet every single time a new, highly anticipated photoshoot is suddenly released, proving that his face is not merely a genetic feature, but a monumental, culture-shifting phenomenon that absolutely redefines how an entire generation perceives and celebrates masculine beauty. Tom Cruise, a man who has vividly witnessed the rapid rise and sudden fall of countless beautiful stars over his 40-decade reign in Hollywood, would undoubtedly look deeply at Kim Taehyung and see a face that is not merely built for a quick, fleeting 15-minute burst of viral fame, but rather an enduring, immortal visage that will be meticulously studied, highly praised, and deeply adored for decades to come, firmly cementing his absolute status as an untouchable icon of modern history. By completely mastering the incredibly rare, highly sophisticated art of projecting an aura of vintage, timeless elegance while simultaneously dominating the fiercely modern, hyper-fast-paced world of global pop culture, Kim Taehyung forcefully and rightfully claims the incredibly prestigious number 2 spot on this legendary, mind-blowing Hollywood countdown, leaving an absolutely indelible, scorching mark on the global standard of beauty and pushing the sheer, suffocating anticipation to an absolute terrifying breaking point as we finally breathlessly prepare to unveil the single most handsome, undisputed visual king of this epic, unforgettable ranking.
Number 1. BTS Jin. And here we finally stand at the absolute, undisputed summit of this historic visual countdown, staring directly into the face of a man who didn't just claim the title of worldwide handsome as a playful running joke, but scientifically and undeniably proven it to the entire world time and time again. The eldest member and visual core of BTS, Kim Seok-jin. When an A-list Hollywood titan like Tom Cruise, a man who has spent over 40 decades acting alongside the most mesmerizing leading men and breathtaking screen sirens in cinema history, looked upon the visage of Jin, he didn't just see an extraordinarily handsome pop icon, he saw the absolute physical manifestation of timeless, classic Hollywood royalty. Cruise, who intimately understands the strict mathematical demands of the camera lens, was thoroughly stunned by what international plastic surgeons and visual artists have repeatedly verified through scientific analysis. Jin's face possesses the literal golden ratio of 1 to 1.618, displaying an astonishing, nearly impossible level of facial symmetry, where every single feature, from the exact distance between his eyes to the precise slope of his nose and the delicate proportions of his jawline, aligns in flawless, harmonious perfection.
But what truly elevated Jin to the undisputed #1 spot in the eyes of a veteran cinematic legend is that his beauty is far from a cold, artificial, or sterile perfection. It is a living, breathing canvas of pure, unadulterated warmth, royal elegance, and an irresistible aristocratic charm that instantly commands any room he steps into without needing to exude an aggressive, overwhelming force. Tom Cruise pointed out that Jin possesses the quintessential golden era leading man face, the kind of breathtaking visual versatility that dominated the silver screen during the golden age of cinema, featuring full, plush lips that provide a soft, romantic contrast to his sharp, beautifully structured jawline, and deep, expressive eyes that radiate an aura of gentle, noble sophistication. To truly appreciate the breathtaking magnitude of Kim Sok-jin's visual supremacy, one must understand the iconic, almost mythical background of how he was discovered. A young, unsuspecting university student majoring in acting at the prestigious Konkuk University, stepping off a local bus simply trying to attend class, only to be chased down the street by a desperate casting director who was so completely blinded by his raw, unpolished, godlike visuals that they begged him to join Big Hit Entertainment on the spot. Cruise, a fellow actor who deeply understands the grueling transition from dramatic acting to the intense, physically demanding world of global music performance, noted that Jin's acting background serves as the secret fuel behind his captivating visual presence, allowing him to effortlessly channel intense, heartbreaking vulnerability in cinematic masterpieces like Epiphany and Awake, or project a wildly charming, cosmic romanticism in his massive solo hit, The Astronaut. Furthermore, the Hollywood icon was utterly fascinated by the sheer, magnificent physical posture and broad, statuesque frame that supports this legendary face. His famous, towering 60-centimeter worldwide shoulders that give him the commanding, athletic silhouette of a classic action hero, creating a staggering visual balance that makes him look like he stepped straight out of a multi-million-dollar blockbuster film. But perhaps the most profound, deeply moving aspect of Jin's beauty that completely won over Tom Cruise is his legendary, deeply selfless personality. Despite possessing a face that consistently tops global scientific beauty charts and leaves international interviewers completely speechless, Jin famously utilizes his blinding visuals and sharp, hilarious dad jokes to instantly break the ice, lower his own natural shield, and make everyone around him feel infinitely comfortable and relaxed. Cruise recognized this as the ultimate mark of a true superstar, a man who carries the immense, suffocating weight of being called the world's most handsome man with effortless humor, light-hearted grace, and a deep, unshakable humility, refusing to ever let his physical appearance turn him into a cold, untouchable diva. When Jin stood up to complete his mandatory military service as the first BTS member to enlist, entering one of the toughest frontline division boot camps and earning the prestigious title of an elite commander through sheer hard work and discipline, his bare, unedited military photos sent shockwaves across the globe, proving that even without a single drop of makeup, under harsh lighting, wearing a simple military uniform with a close-cropped haircut, his raw, natural beauty remains entirely untouched, radiating an even stronger, stoic dignity that earned the deep respect of visual critics everywhere. In the final estimation of a Hollywood legend who knows exactly what it takes to stay at the absolute top of the global entertainment world for over 40 years, Kim Sok-jin stands alone at the absolute apex because his handsomeness is complete, timeless, and completely universal. He bridges the gap between classic, old-school European elegance and modern, high-fashion Asian aesthetics, delivering a visual perfection so profound, so balanced, and so emotionally comforting that it leaves no room for debate, solidifying his undisputed reign as the true, ultimate visual king of BTS and securing his legendary crown at #1.